Story 1. I dropped out of high school and obtained a general educational development certificate. Most people in my life know me as a reasonably accomplished lawyer, and I am regularly hired by clients facing litigation that could ruin their business. I don't think anyone would know I have a GED, and 8 years later, I went to a community college, then a local university before attending a Tier 1 law school. Story 2. I was an actor for the show Ghost Hunters. I got paid $400 to play a guy whose family was being haunted, and my child couldn't sleep because of this. I had no spouse, children, or house at the time, and I also made the noises they captured on their ghost camera. I always find it hilarious when I see people discussing those shows. Story 3. I read safety manuals at work when I'm bored. The manuals are quite dull and rarely come up in casual conversation. However, the information is useful. Story 4. I became tired of people lying, so I vowed never to lie about 5 years ago. There are exceptions, but I am quite steadfast. Story 5. Well, I recently got a large phoenix tattoo on my upper left arm and shoulder. I have not told my family about it, and I am currently abroad. Story 6. I almost met Stephen Hawking while working my Saturday job in retail in Cambridge. I was on my lunch break when he came in. I saw it on the security cameras. Story 7. I am pretending to be happier and better than I am. All people see is sadness and negativity, and no one knows how far I have come from the bottom. It doesn't matter anyway. Story 8. The number of times I've nearly drowned as a child is countless. Any activity involving water leads to the awkward conversation of, "Why aren't you swimming with everyone else? My friend doesn't swim, just leave him alone," is what a friend who knows me chimes in. Or they try throwing me in and see the look on my face. This isn't fun. It's a kid fighting for his life, as if I'm trying to kill him. I overpowered a guy twice my size and tossed him in the water instead. If you've seen the look of post-traumatic stress disorder, you'd understand. If water is involved, my brain goes straight to fight or flight, regardless of the actual threat. Water means danger. Even if you're just trying to hold me down while a parade sprinkler soaks me, it's do or die time. Drunken uncle-style swim lessons account for half my near drownings. The other times occurred before I turned 4. As a toddler, I walked over an in-ground hot tub cover, slipped right under, and fortunately, my uncle was paying attention. The rest were due to neglectful parents allowing me to play by the pool without supervision. If other people hadn't been paying attention, I wouldn't be here. I fell in at 6 months, twice more before the age of 4, and experienced the in-ground hot tub accident before the drunken uncle swim lessons, where I was repeatedly thrown into the deep end until my sister had to pull me out and perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation. My family still laughs about it and how traumatic it was, as if I were overreacting because, in their words, "You have a pulse, you're fine, stop crying. Fractured leg? I'm fine. Cut needing stitches? I'm fine. Sick for days and unable to drink or eat. I'm fine. Emotional stress? Stop overreacting, you're fine." Story 9. I developed pneumonia shortly after being born and was given a 5% chance of survival. This is not something I like to discuss much, as it reflects the ordinary challenges and underachievement my life has experienced. Story 10. I am circumcised. I had the procedure done when I was 36 due to a medical condition. Besides the medical staff, only 3 people know: my ex and my parents. The only reason my parents know is that I was under anesthesia and could not be alone afterward. Story 11. I am a burn victim. I have completely healed and appear as if it never happened, but I was on fire and in the hospital for a week for second-degree burns all over. Story 12. I once met Lionel Messi in Barcelona and had a conversation with him. He is such a cool human being, very humble and kind. Story 13. My grandfather shook hands with the man who shook hands with Abraham Lincoln. I also shook my grandfather's hand that had shaken hands with the man who had shaken hands with Abraham Lincoln. Story 14. I climbed to the top of a volcano. It was so high that there were clouds in the crater of the volcano. Story 15. I saved a homeless man in Hammersmith in 2000. Then I went to work and did not say anything when someone was sarcastic about me being late. Story 16. The only way for me to get over someone I really like but know I will never be able to be with is by finding something they did or said that I don't like. I then make it a big deal in my mind, so it annoys me to the point where I progressively begin to dislike that person, leading me to cut them out and ignore them. Once I get over them, I can become friends with them again without having any romantic thoughts. Story 17. I promised myself I would never be in a relationship again unless the person was truly worth it and genuinely liked me. Story 18. I have a very active sense of smell. I can detect certain people when they are nearby. I'm not sure if it's pheromones or if others can sense it too, but I asked some close friends if they could identify the same scent, and they said no. Story 19. I have been baptized 3 times. Once after my birth, once in foster care, and once in high school. They really wanted me to be saved. I don't strongly believe in God, but I think Jesus is a great role model to live by. If I can be even half as kind, compassionate, and honest, then I would say I lived well. Story 20. My neighbor is an iron worker, and last fall I probably saved his house and workshop from burning down. I came home from work around 9 p.m. and was in my kitchen eating. My kitchen window faces his workshop, and I saw some reddish-yellow light around one of his metal cutting machines. I realized there was a fire and panicked, unsure whether to call the firefighters or if we could contain it. My hose wouldn't reach that spot, and I wasn't sure if there was electricity nearby. When I was 2 meters away, I realized we probably didn't need to call the firefighters. I ran to the neighbor, rang the doorbell, and told him that he had a fire burning near the machine and that we needed a bucket or hose at the front of his building. We grabbed a bucket of water, ran to the spot, and he put the fire out. He said he had used the machine an hour earlier, and it was probably some hot waste that had ignited trash in the waste box. If I had finished work earlier that day, there is a chance he could have lost his possessions or even his life if I hadn't woken him up. Story 21. I am healing my inner child. I still sleep with my plush doll. I feel like I can fully enjoy these things now at this age. Story 22. David Caruso thinks I urinated on the floor in his movie set trailer. I was a production assistant on the set of Session 9. The movie was filmed at an abandoned insane asylum. I had been working outside for hours, and there were no restrooms nearby. As I passed by David's trailer, he was coming out. I asked if I could use his bathroom, and he let me in. The door to the bathroom was one of those accordion-type doors that slide open and closed. After I finished, I noticed some liquid on the floor. I didn't want him to think it was me, so I grabbed a bunch of paper towels and started wiping it up. Just then, the door popped open because it had not been latched securely. He was in the doorway, looking at me in disbelief. I was mortified, said thanks, and quickly left. Story 23. I wear one contact lens. My right eye has 20/20 vision, while my left has 95/20 vision. I should consider getting a monocle. Story 24. I got an autograph from Robert, the author of Stone Heart. I love playing the piano and have composed music since I was 11. I taught myself how to read and play the piano at that age as well. Story 25. I've given up. I'm trying to care, but no matter how much therapy I go through, how many techniques I try, or how many prescription medications I take, nothing changes. Story 26. 30 years ago, I found myself in a dangerous situation involving paramilitary groups to help a friend and pretended to be someone I wasn't. It was all a bluff. We could have all been killed, but it worked and we lived to tell the tale. It was frightening, and I still look back and think, you were one crazy person back in the day. Story 27. I am a very light-hearted person. I have mostly been in situations where those around me have seen me being serious. I take what needs to be taken seriously, but that does not mean I am a serious person. I did not even realize this until recently. Story 28. When I was a bartender on a military base, I served Prince Philip a rye and water. It was predetermined what the drink would be. I was to have it ready when he approached the bar. 1983, London, Ontario. Story 29. I prefer to enjoy freedom in a public space while observing the surprised reactions on people's faces. Story 30. I met Michael Jackson in 2002. He came into the Wax Museum where I worked in Las Vegas and swapped clothes with the ones on his figure. He later wore that outfit to the MTV Video Music Awards when he mistakenly accepted what he thought was the Artist of the Millennium Award. Story 31. I cannot afford to go on trips, so I enter many contests for the trips I have won. In the past 5 years, I have won a trip to an electronic dance music concert, Universal Studios, a winery in Napa, the United States Olympic gymnastics trials, and a soccer tournament in Texas. I also won a trip to a music festival in Florida, but it conflicted with another trip, all fully paid for. Usually, they will move dates or give you cash, but they wouldn't, so I had to pass and they awarded it to someone else. No luck is really involved. I just enter hundreds of them a day. I am currently in a dry spell, but the amount of sweepstakes being offered as a whole has declined. Story 32. I am not capable of empathy. I am good at faking it, and most people think I am a nice, caring person. Story 33. I met Queen Elizabeth II when I was about 10 years old. I shook her hand, and she talked to me a little. It's amazing that I actually met someone from the royal family. Story 34. I can identify many more animals than anyone else I have ever met. Show me a picture of an animal, and I can at least determine the genus or family if I don't know the name. I am not a biologist. I simply enjoy animals. Story 35. I am waiting for my parents to pass away before I end my life. I do not want them to experience that misery. For now, I am managing my depression and dark thoughts without medication. Story 36. I know the favorite food of every United States president in history. I'm from Germany, which makes it even more random. Story 37. My intuition is so well calibrated that I can tell from miles away a person I should avoid or someone I should approach. Story 38. I nearly died at 38 while canoeing in northern Ontario near Hudson Bay. My guide and I capsized while motoring upstream near sunset. We lost all our gear and nearly our lives. He couldn't swim, and we stupidly forgot to wear life vests. The river was probably 300 meters wide at that point. I had to swim us, fully clothed, to shore. To this day, it remains one of the biggest events in my life. Story 39. I am a certified personal trainer. My job is completely unrelated to this field. I work out casually and do not usually mention my certification. It is a useful fact to have for conversations about myself. Story 40. I can lick my left elbow. It is not positioned normally because it was broken and repaired in 3 surgeries. I also have a long tongue. Story 41. I love perfume commercials that feature beautiful models, nice songs, and lovely scenery in the background. I really enjoy them. Story 42. I am trained in espionage, human source collection, and counterintelligence. I do not engage in those activities anymore, but I still apply my training on occasion. Story 43. I never went to college or applied for a job. I just kept doing what I love, and now I make about $200,000 a year by sharing my knowledge. Story 44. I was sent to a special school when I was 12 because I had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. If you met me, you would think I was completely normal, even witty. I am still struggling with depression about it at age 36. Story 45. For the most part, I don't care about left or right politics. I only focus on what is in the best interest of the woman I love. Story 46. I was once arrested at gunpoint, and an entire city block was shut down after being falsely identified as the suspect in a bank robbery that had just occurred nearby. Story 47. When I was 12, my dad took his life. When I returned to school, most of my classmates knew he had died, but not the reason. I told them he died from kidney disease, which he did have, but it was not fatal. As a child, I felt ashamed and did not understand why anyone would do that. Now that I am 30, I regret lying about his cause of death. Mental illness is a very real issue that I also struggle with in my adult life. Story 48. I am mostly deaf in one ear and about half deaf in the other. My good ear is declining as well, and I am worried I will be deaf before I can find the willpower to learn American Sign Language. Story 49. I regularly engage in intimate activities with couples, including a pair who are my close friends. No one in our friend group has any idea about this. Story 50. I don't enjoy having my art complimented. I prefer criticism. However, it's rude to tell anyone that after they compliment me. Story 51. Once, a girl I liked met George W. Bush when we were in middle school at the White House because she was in the National Honor Society. Later, I dated her when I was 27, but we broke up after about 4 months. Story 52. I have a damaged nerve in my lower jaw because I fell down some stairs when I was a baby and landed on my face. It left both my baby tooth and the adult tooth underneath disfigured. I'm just glad that my bottom lip usually covers it. Story 53. I sit at home quietly reading when I'm not working. Otherwise, I am very talkative and always on the move. Story 54. I attended the same school as Damn Daniel. 2 years later, while working at my second job at Wendy's, I took his order. He may not be famous like some comments suggest, but I thought it was a unique and interesting interaction. Story 55. I have seen a total of 3 no-hitters in person, one of which was a perfect game. They were 1. Jose Jimenez, Cardinals, June 25, 1999, versus the Diamondbacks in Phoenix. 2. Jonathan Sanchez, Giants, July 10, 2009, versus the Padres in San Francisco. 3. Matt Cain, Giants, perfect game, June 13, 2012, versus the Astros in San Francisco. You have a 0.14% chance of seeing a no-hitter and a 0.01% chance of seeing a perfect game. Therefore, I have literally experienced something you have a 0.00019% chance of encountering in your lifetime. Story 56. I am not sure exactly what to write, so for now I will say that I like to sleep without clothes because I have autism, which I guess is related to hypersensitivity. Story 57. I know a few significant secrets that could affect society and people's opinions on some major events and court cases. Story 58. I engage in a lot of metacognition, which means thinking about the way I think. I hope I will never think aloud because people might consider me insane, so I prefer to keep my thoughts to myself. I like to believe I am sane. Story 59. Despite my timid and quiet demeanor, I've been told I have a very strong personality, and it tends to scare people off. Story 60. I have every monthly issue of Playboy from 1960 until now and most issues from the National Security Service. I also have an issue or two from other countries. Story 61. I shook hands with Denzel Washington and was close to playing basketball with him. I could have also had a job in his private security team. Story 62. I'm a pretty cynical person most of the time with dry humor and a serious demeanor, along with dealing with depression. However, my favorite part of the day is turning on pop music and pretending I'm a famous pop star while dancing in the mirror before I shower. Story 63. I never cared to buy a Walkman in the 1980s because I could hear any song in my head. Just the songs I knew, of course. It was different from a sing-along or whistling experience. I could hear multiple instruments at the same time. It has mostly faded away with age. Story 64. I met one of the Beach Boys when I was a toddler. My grandmother and I were getting on the same plane he was on and needed someone to help hold my hand so I wouldn't fall. He refused, as he was worried about a photographer taking a picture and making a big deal out of him holding a little girl's hand. Story 65. I have a feeling I have facial blindness. Everyone just looks the same, just a face, even friends and people I've known for years. I've never mentioned this to anyone. Story 66. I no longer care about friendships. I am 53 years old and do not feel like talking to my childhood friends anymore. Story 67. I'm not an innocent or good person. I have no idea why. Throughout most of my life, people have always thought of me as a sweet, innocent angel who can do no harm and is nice. I'm really not. I'm just reserved and silent most of the time. They wouldn't believe the things I get up to. Story 68. I snubbed Uma Thurman. I do not know who she thought I was, but suddenly there she was, standing in front of me at our table, looking down at me and smirking while smiling. My friend elbowed me to get my attention, and I looked up. Instead of being polite, I said, Hi. Then, for some reason, I went back to my cheeseburger as if she wasn't standing there. Sorry, Uma. I have no clue who she thought I was. Story 69. I made intense eye contact with Brad Pitt before even knowing who he was. This was over 20 years ago. I didn't realize until Troy came out not long after, and I thought, hey, that's the guy. Story 70. I eliminated 11 Nazis in the Bolivian jungles who had been on the run from The Hague for 40 years back in the 1980s. The entire mission was a total disaster from start to finish and failed spectacularly. Story 71. Last June, I was driving to the beach at 2 a.m., going 100 miles per hour down a back road. I closed my eyes for about 30 seconds with my hands off the wheel, hoping to crash. The usual tiny pull in my truck steering just happened to align with the curve of the road. I'm doing much better now and have started hormone replacement therapy, so I'm becoming my true and happier self. Story 72. I had some strong chemotherapy 12 years ago while going through cancer, and one of the treatments completely killed my sense of taste. However, it has greatly improved my sense of smell. Annoyingly, I can now smell when it is my daughter's time of the month. My wife has gone through menopause, and the smell of chicken-flavored chips makes me gag. I can also smell various things from a long distance. Story 73. Apparently, people look at me and think, I don't know this guy, but I'll share personal experiences and incidents that probably should involve the police or a therapist at the very least. I don't even ask people. I'll be having a drink at the bar, reading a book, and people will just pull up a chair and tell me things. Many things. Story 74. I often watch what is happening outside my window and silently wish for people to return home safely when they are alone or out at night. Story 75. I have caused harm to others during my time in the military. I am a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, now 9 years sober. My intelligence quotient is between 130 and 140. I broke my hip in a car accident 10 years ago. I love key lime pie, and only my wife knows this. I have not told a lie in 9 years. I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, insomnia, and depression. I once attempted suicide. I have been incarcerated. I enjoy writing and painting. I am partially deaf in one ear and have a hidden hearing aid in my truck that I refuse to use. Story 76. I had the same teachers as Bruce Lee, and I belong to a Shaolin temple in China. There are only a few white individuals registered at the same place as Steven Seagal. Story 77. I have a toe shaped like a cartoon character. Seriously. Send me a message and I'll share a picture. Story 78. I randomly know things I shouldn't or have no way of knowing. For example, I can sense when someone is pregnant, if someone is going to die, when someone will arrive at my home, or who is calling without looking at my phone. I also know random facts about people that they haven't shared with me, even with strangers. Once, I asked my friend what her new phone number was, and she was supposed to get it the next day. She never told me that was happening. I can sometimes know the answers to tests or questions. Once I scored higher than my sister on a test she was studying for, even though I had never taken the class. There have been many other unusual situations. Disclaimer: this doesn't work all the time, but based on tests and other experiences, I would estimate it works about 75% of the time. Story 79. I am directly related to Jefferson Davis on my mother's side and to Abraham Lincoln on my father's side. Story 80. I have had a relationship with one of the most popular singers in the world and never shared it with anyone because there is no way to prove it. And I don't think anyone would believe me. Story 81. My senior year in high school, I was very sick. Food wasn't digesting, and I threw up everything I ate. I didn't know what was happening and didn't even talk about it with my parents until I was 21. I developed severe gastritis and acid reflux, which resulted in Barrett's esophagus. Of course, I was prescribed numerous medications to combat the issue. It seemed to get better, but I still suffered from digestion problems. At the end of 1997, my doctor told me about a procedure called Nissen fundoplication, where they take the top of the stomach and wrap it around the esophagus. It prevents stomach acid from going up into the esophagus. I agreed to it. It was the worst decision I ever made. I experienced bloating, gas, and could not throw up. In 2006, I had a surgeon look at it, and when I woke up, he said, "Your stomach looks like an upside-down hourglass." The surgery was done wrong. So I had him revise the surgery. The crazy part of all this is that I had a condition called gastroparesis, but not one doctor could figure out why I was throwing up my food. There is medication for this that could have potentially prevented the acid reflux. Did I sue the surgeon? No, I didn't. Why? I was young, naive, and did not understand the situation. Today, I am 48 and have gained some wisdom. I don't throw up my food anymore, but I still suffer in many ways. In 1997, the vagus nerve was damaged, and I have a hard time with nerve function, voice projection, and experience tingling in my face, as well as difficulty with nutritional absorption. I didn't expect to share this much. Nobody in my life really knows about my daily struggles. Work friends, neighbors, and acquaintances know nothing about this. This feels therapeutic. Thank you for the question. Oh, and should I still consider suing even almost 30 years later? Story 82. I am a very sad and lonely person. I would have greatly benefited from a social skills group in elementary school, but they didn't have those back then. Felt like the advice was to just rub some dirt on it and you'll be fine. Now I find myself not fine and feeling lonely. My husband does not engage with me, and my children are now young adults. It's just me. Story 83. I attempted to take my own life in 2009 and was in a coma for 3 days. During that time, I visited another place. Story 84. I am a highly qualified subject matter expert in my field. However, I have struggled with imposter syndrome my whole life. Story 85. I have double-jointed thumbs that bend back much further than usual, making it quite an advantage when I play thumb wrestling. Story 86. I can recite The Bridge from Hardware Store by Weird Al, where he lists items you can buy at a hardware store for memory. If you don't believe me, I will respond to your comment with all the lyrics. Story 87. I was born with one of my ears closed. Fortunately, it has since opened, but it is smaller than my other ear, so I need 2 differently sized earbuds. Story 88. I used to be able to fit my fist in my mouth until I had my wisdom teeth removed. Unfortunately, my jaw doesn't open as wide now. Story 89. I have met and shaken hands with 2 people from such different political sides that it probably puts me in a very small Venn diagram overlap to have met both. I met Strom Thurmond when I lived in South Carolina for a short period in the early to mid-1990s and met Al Sharpton in Detroit about 15 years ago. Story 90. I'm not 16 years old, nor am I 12. People have said I look 16, but someone yesterday thought I was 12 at first. Now I'm not really sure how old I appear. Story 91. I like animals more than people. I work with at-risk youth, so my interactions aim to help reduce their stress and anxiety as much as possible. I am forward and blunt, not in a cruel or harsh way, but in a manner that doesn't allow for excuses. Story 92. I injured my frenulum while performing oral activities. I caught it between my bottom teeth, and it ripped. It was similar to healing a piercing. Story 93. I have always wanted to be someone who is used for sexual pleasure, but I am a guy and not gay, so it never worked out for me. Story 94. I almost played Team Fortress 2 with a Russian oligarch, but then he flaked on me and stopped responding once I got a girlfriend. Story 95. I talk a lot. People tell me they are surprised by this. Maybe I look like someone who does not talk much. Story 96. I have met one of the World Guinness mental calculation winners several times. I am pretty sure he is the former champion Alberto Cotto. Story 97. Despite being a licensed attorney, I spent most of my late teens and early 20s committing multiple drug-related felonies. Story 98. People think of me as a strange person with no feelings like, look at that serious kid. Does he do something with his life? I still miss my ex, and I often find myself crying because of what she did to me 2 years ago. Story 99. Well, sometimes I go a day without showering. My skin gets dry and I like my body to feel smooth, so most of the time I shower every other day. Story 100. I attended a comedy show where Craig Robinson was the special guest. It has become a cherished memory for me. Story 101. Many years ago, I visited Disneyland Paris for the first time. Suddenly, the football player Ruud van Nistelrooy casually walked past. Story 102. My birthday is on April Fool's Day. I pulled my first prank at birth. My parents thought they were having a boy. Story 103. I chatted with Alan Alda for quite a while in the men's department at Neiman Marcus on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills in the mid-1980s. He is a clever and interesting man. Story 104. My wife was a popular meme over a decade ago. There is still a dedicated subreddit for her. It is rarely posted in anymore, but a post a few days ago garnered 450 upvotes. Story 105. I've never lost a tag team match in Toronto. I was watching the World Wrestling Entertainment Elimination Chamber last night, and the announced team mentioned that Trish Stratus has never lost a tag team match in Toronto. I thought, for that matter, neither have I. Story 106. I forget shows and movies over time and can rewatch them as if I've never seen them before. However, I have a great memory for everything else. Story 107. The then minister-president of my country nearly hit me with his bike and quickly apologized, adding a joke as well. I was visiting the parliament, so the chances were high that I would meet him or other members, but I didn't expect it to go like this. Story 108. My IQ is 128, and my IQ in mathematics is 186. It's random. No one cares, but it's there. This is not me, but my grandfather has a picture with Messi, one with Ronaldo, and one with Pedro Sanchez. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.